This is a fake one-sided rivalry. We got Angel Reese taking more shots at Caitlin Clark unnecessarily. You in Indiana having a great time partying. We see all the clips. Why can't you just do your thing?
The 2024 WNBA All-Star Weekend was supposed to be a coronation, the definitive moment when women's basketball shattered the glass ceiling of mainstream sports and triumphantly seized the world's attention. It was an event meticulously engineered for greatness, set up like a Hollywood blockbuster with a universally beloved hero, a defiant and compelling villain, and a sold-out arena pulsing with the energy of imminent history. Instead, in a shocking and rapid turn of events, the entire spectacle disintegrated into a public relations inferno. It became a weekend that brutally exposed a bitterly one-sided rivalry, a shockingly tone-deaf player protest, and a cold, hard financial truth that the league can no longer afford to ignore. The biggest, most anticipated moment in the WNBA's history devolved into its most embarrassing and revealing public disaster, and the fallout laid bare the fragile foundations of its newfound success. So how exactly did a guaranteed triumph spiral into a cautionary tale that left the entire sports world buzzing for all the wrong and most fascinating reasons?
But can Sarah Spain and the media stop going out there and saying that like the Caitlin Clark needs to do something to stop all this, when it is very clear this is a one-sided beef, and the one-sided beef is not from Caitlin Clark?
We do start our show, though, with unfortunate news out of the WNBA. Caitlin Clark announced today that she will miss both the three-point contest and the WNBA All-Star Game this upcoming weekend in Indiana after re-aggravating a groin injury in that final minute of Tuesday's win over the Connecticut Sun. Clark had missed 4 games and the Commissioner's Cup final with that groin injury earlier this month, and now will be out for this weekend's festivities, which really stinks for fans. But you know that if there was any way that she could be...
The script on paper was written for absolute, undeniable perfection. The WNBA, in a stroke of marketing genius, had strategically placed its All-Star Game in Indianapolis, the newly anointed capital of the women's basketball universe, and the undisputed home of its most transcendent and valuable star, Caitlin Clark. The narrative was simple, powerful, and incredibly marketable. The humble hometown hero, a generational talent who had single-handedly shattered viewership records and attracted millions of new fans to the sport, was set to face off against her fiery and polarizing rival, Angel Reese. This wasn't just another exhibition game, it was the professional escalation of their iconic NCAA championship battle, a rivalry that had already captured the nation's imagination with its stark contrast in styles and personalities. The hype was a tidal wave. Corporate behemoths like Nike, Gatorade, and State Farm dumped millions into advertising campaigns, all banking on a ratings bonanza. ESPN promoted the showdown relentlessly, framing it not just as a game, but as a must-see cultural event that transcended the world of sports. Consequently, ticket prices exploded, soaring to unprecedented highs and making the average seat the most expensive in WNBA history. Die-hard fans and curious newcomers alike booked flights and sold out Indianapolis hotels months in advance, all clamoring for a chance to be in the building when history was made. The stage was meticulously set, not just for a basketball game, but for a crowning moment, a ceremony that would finally and irrevocably legitimize the WNBA's place in the top tier of American professional sports. But just days before the celebration was set to begin, a single devastating announcement sent shockwaves through the league, and the entire Hollywood script was violently and unceremoniously torn to shreds.
Caitlin Clark gets hurt, and guess what? Your demand vanishes because people ain't going to pay up to see these athletes that are ungrateful that their sport's growing. People aren't paying up for that. And we are here, right here. The tickets for this game, for this All-Star game, they've dropped by 50%.
But when it comes to the vendors in the arena, the shops in the arena, they're not going to have the same amount of people patronize their business as they would if Caitlin Clark was there. The surrounding restaurants, the surrounding areas, the surrounding attractions, they're not going to have the same number of people patronize their business as they would if Caitlin Clark was healthy.
Reebok, Angel Reese are taking shots at Caitlin Clark, using her as promo. Angel Reese, let's be clear here. Let's just be all the way clear here. Angel Reese is a solid basketball player. Angel Reese 100% has benefited from attaching herself to Caitlin Clark at every single turn. Her podcast, the first 3 episodes, all the clips promoting was bringing up Caitlin Clark. It was bringing up Caitlin Clark and all of the promo. People wanted to know what she was going to say. She used Caitlin Clark as promo.
The news broke like a thunderclap across social media and sports networks, spreading with the viral speed reserved for true calamities. Caitlin Clark was injured. A nagging groin injury, an ailment she had been carefully managing for weeks, had flared up at the absolute worst possible time, forcing her to withdraw from both the fan-favorite three-point contest and the All-Star game itself. In one swift, cruel instant, the main event, the very foundation upon which the entire weekend's hype, investment, and narrative was built, had vanished. The collective groan from the sports world was almost audible. You could practically feel the air hiss out of Indianapolis as the electric energy and breathless anticipation that had been building for months evaporated into a thick fog of disappointment. Families who had planned the ultimate basketball vacation for their daughters were now scrambling to explain why their hero wouldn't be on the court. Fans who had spent thousands of dollars on non-refundable flights, hotels, and premium tickets were left holding worthless paper, their pilgrimage to see a legend in the making, reduced to a trip to see a secondary show they never signed up for. The dream matchup with Reese, the central conflict that was supposed to drive the entire narrative and produce unforgettable moments, was officially dead on arrival. The hometown hero wouldn't be taking the court, and the carefully constructed spectacle was now a ship without a captain, adrift in a sea of fan disillusionment. But the profound and widespread disappointment was just the opening act of this unfolding disaster. The real catastrophic damage was about to be revealed in cold hard numbers that would send a terrifying and undeniable message directly to the league's front office.
Angel Reese, I'm in your city. Walk in your trap, take over your trap. Post it on Instagram. There's about 15 fans there and Reebok put up a board. You would expect Reebok to put up a board. Let's never forget that when let's never forget the gigantic Caitlin Clark Nike billboard in Chicago. Let's never forget that. So if Reebok didn't put up a board for Angel Reese,
is you continue to take shots at her, and then when them shots get fired back, nobody likes it. We don't have no videos of Caitlin Clark really taking shots at Angel Reese. Look at what Angel Reese and Reebok are doing for views. Walk in your trap, take over your trap. This is promo they're doing in Indianapolis, where Caitlin Clark plays. That is a clear shot. It's a clear shot. Like I said, this is a fake rivalry. I think you've won one game versus Caitlin Clark. You've never won in Indiana at all. It's just like you continue to attach yourself to her at every turn and use her as promo.
Caitlin Clark has never said a negative word about Angel Reese. Caitlin Clark has never said a negative word. Or to be honest, when it comes to Caitlin Clark, she did show it by her actions. Showed it by her actions. She didn't need to say, I'm taking over Chicago. She did, however, go and put up 31 and 12, set a career high with 12 assists, be the only player in the history of the WNBA ever to have 31 and 12 in a game. She did, in fact, do that and then try to hype up the Chicago crowd. So it's fair enough. You want to say, oh, Caitlin Clark did this, then show it with your actions. Go and win MVP. Go and win MVP. Don't just be like, this is my city. Don't just come in and be like, this is my city. You've never won a game. Has she won a game in Indiana? I don't think she's ever won a game in Indiana. I actually do not think she has won a pro game in Indiana.
Without the magnetic presence of Caitlin Clark on the marquee, the free market sent a brutal, immediate, and unforgiving message about her true value. According to official, verified data from the ticket resale platform TickPick, the average get-in price for the All-Star game plummeted by a staggering 48%, dropping from a healthy $121 to a paltry $64 almost overnight. What had been just 24 hours earlier the most in-demand ticket in the history of the WNBA suddenly became a desperate fire sale. Sellers who had hoped to profit were now frantically trying to offload their seats for a fraction of what they paid, some even struggling to give them away. This wasn't just a minor dip, it was a complete financial nosedive, the kind of market crash that exposed a fragile and deeply uncomfortable truth for the league's executives. The numbers proved, in no uncertain terms, that Caitlin Clark wasn't just another popular player or even a superstar. She was the entire economic engine. Her presence alone, the data suggested, accounted for nearly half of the event's perceived commercial value. This phenomenon is almost unheard of in other more established professional sports leagues. The absence of a single star, even a major one like LeBron James or Patrick Mahomes, from their respective All-Star games, wouldn't crater the market so dramatically. The economic fallout was a stunning real-time testament to one player's singular gravitational power and a brutal revelation of the league's precarious and almost total dependence on her. The ripple effect devastated the local economy of Indianapolis. Restaurants that had staffed up for massive crowds sat half empty. Hotels that were banking on a citywide tourism boom saw unexpected vacancies. It was a humiliating lesson in supply and demand. But while the league was reeling from this financial gut punch and trying to manage the public relations fallout, one player saw the unfolding chaos not as a crisis, but as the perfect opportunity to execute a controversial and calculated power play.
Now with Reebok she's using, this is nonstop. She has attached herself to Caitlin Clark at every single turn, and she has benefited. Let's be clear here. Yes, she does receive backlash. She does receive negativity, but she has benefited greatly. She has made millions of dollars off of attaching herself to Caitlin Clark and using her to make her brand bigger.
The ticket prices, the demand fell off a cliff. And it's not just the on-court product that suffers without number 22, Caitlin Clark. The entire weekend's economic opportunities have felt the fallout. This was conveyed with a July 18th post from NBA Central that wrote, quote, "The get-in price for the WNBA All-Star Game in Indianapolis has dropped 48%, from $121 a ticket to $64 a ticket after the news broke that Caitlin Clark won't be playing." I mean, the tickets lost 50% of its value. These numbers are confirmed by TickPick's website, currently having the All-Star Game's get-in price at $64. And a July 16th article from Front Office Sports, which was posted before Clark announced she'd be sitting out, was $121.
While Caitlin Clark was at home, forced to watch from the sidelines and nurse a legitimate injury, Angel Reese and her primary sponsor, Reebok, launched a calculated, aggressive, and what many felt was a deeply cynical marketing campaign, right in the heart of Indianapolis. Billboards and targeted social media posts blanketed the city with the provocative, in-your-face slogan, "I'm in your city." The messaging grew even more pointed and confrontational when Reese posted an Instagram story prominently featuring the drill rap track, "Take Over Your Trap" by Bankroll Fresh, a song with undeniable connotations of hostile conquest. There was no ambiguity, this was a direct shot, an act of territorial declaration aimed squarely at her absent rival. The move was immediately and intensely polarizing. A small but vocal segment of fans and media personalities praised it as a brilliant and edgy marketing strategy, a boss move in the hyper-competitive world of athlete branding. However, a much larger and more powerful wave of fans, analysts, and even casual observers swiftly condemned it as opportunistic, tasteless, and classless. The optics were, to put it mildly, terrible. You're publicly and proudly boasting about taking over someone's home city while your opponent is physically unable to show up and defend her turf. It looked less like confident competition and more like kicking someone when they're down. The stunt only served to pour gasoline on the fire of public perception, solidifying the narrative that this supposed rivalry was incredibly one-sided, a beef fueled almost entirely by Reese's relentless and seemingly obsessive targeting of Clark. While other All-Stars respectfully acknowledged Clark's unfortunate absence, Reese doubled down, making it clear her campaign was a deliberate and unapologetic challenge. And just when you thought the public relations nightmare for the league couldn't possibly get any worse, the other players on the court decided to send a message of their own, but their timing was an absolute unmitigated disaster. As the remaining All-Stars, now playing in front of a deflated crowd in a devalued event, took the court for pre-game warm-ups, they were spotted wearing coordinated plain black shirts with a bold confrontational message printed in white. "Pay us what you owe us." It was a unified league-wide protest, directly linked to the ongoing and often tense negotiations with the league for a new and improved collective bargaining agreement. In a vacuum, the players' demands are entirely legitimate and understandable. They are fighting for long overdue improvements, higher base salaries, safer and more professional travel accommodations like charter flights, expanded maternal benefits, and a more equitable share of the league's rapidly growing revenue. However, staging this particular protest at this exact moment was a catastrophic miscalculation of the public mood and the weekend's context. To the fans watching at home, and especially to those sitting in the half-empty arena who had just watched their tickets lose half their value, the protest came across as incredibly tone-deaf, ungrateful, and stunningly out of touch. The event's market value had just been surgically and publicly exposed as being terrifyingly dependent on one person, who wasn't even there, and now the remaining players were demanding more money from the very system that was visibly wobbling without its main pillar of support. The protest completely backfired. Social media exploded with a torrent of criticism, with fans accusing the players of biting the hand that feeds them and being utterly oblivious to the economic reality that had just been so painfully and publicly demonstrated before their very eyes. This weekend of complete and utter chaos ultimately laid bare a few uncomfortable, undeniable, and transformative truths that will undoubtedly shape the future of the WNBA. First and most powerfully, it revealed the league's fragile and almost total dependence on a single transcendent player. The 48% ticket price crash wasn't just a statistic, it was a data-driven coronation of Caitlin Clark as the most valuable and irreplaceable asset in the history of women's basketball. Second, it solidified the public's perception of the Clark-Reese dynamic as a one-sided war, a manufactured rivalry, where one party does all the antagonizing. Angel Reese's marketing stunt, intended to project strength and dominance, instead came off as hollow, desperate, and ultimately pathetic. She was shadowboxing in an empty gym, and the brutal market numbers proved that without her famous rival, she couldn't command the spotlight on her own. But most importantly, this disastrous weekend, in a twist of supreme irony, did more to cement Caitlin Clark's untouchable, legendary superstar status than any successful game or record-breaking performance ever could have. The WNBA got its long-awaited mainstream moment, but it wasn't the triumphant celebration they had meticulously planned. It was a brutal, humbling, and public lesson in the dangers of building an empire on the shoulders of one person. The league is now left with a profound and dangerous dilemma. Can it leverage this singular supernova to lift the entire sport to a new sustainable orbit? Or is the WNBA's bright future forever destined to rise and fall with the health and presence of just one woman?